Hello, and welcome to the episode on technology at RELX. Around 12,000 technologists, over half of whom are software engineers, work at RELX. Annually, the company spends $1.9 billion on technology. It is the combination of our rich data sets, technology infrastructure, and knowledge of how to use the next generation innovation that allows us to create effective solutions for customers. Today, I'm speaking with the chief technology officers of 3 of our businesses to understand how this all works. My guests are Vijay Raghavan, CTO of LexisNexis Risk Solutions, Jill Luber, CTO at Elsevier, and Jeff Reihl, the CTO at LexisNexis Legal and Professional. Combined, they have over 60 years at RELX. And I am barely above that average. So as we start, as always, I'd like to ask you to each provide a very brief personal and professional background for the audience, please. So why don't we start with Vijay?
Sure. Thank you, Wise. Thank you for having me on. I've been with the company for 23 years now, joined as part of the ChoicePoint organization, which was acquired by RELX and LexisNexis back in 2008. Became the CTO back in 2012, so I've been in this role for 13 years now. Probably some kind of a law against that in some parts of the country.
None whatsoever. We can add another 0 to it, Vijay. Jill?
Jimmy, go ahead. Yeah, hi. Thanks for inviting me. And Jill Luber, I've been with RELX for 22 years. So I started with Risk Solutions, and I was part of an acquisition as well. I was part of Seisint, which was a company that we acquired in 2003 out of South Florida. It's the company that was responsible for creating the HPCC big data platform. And so part of that acquisition started as a data engineer back then, and was part of Risk for 18 years, and worked actually under Vijay for about 10 as his direct report. And then had the opportunity to join Elsevier as their CTO in 2022. So a little more than 3.5 years I've been in role here.
Great. And Jeff, way out on the west?
I'm sure. I'm Jeff Reihl. I'm the CTO for Lexis and been with the company for 18 years. I actually was hired by Mike Walsh running U.S. editorial. So even though I have a technical background, I was running the editorial organization, but quickly moved into the technology organization as we knew we needed to invest a lot in that area. And then I've been in this role for over a dozen years as the global CTO.
All 3 of you have really interesting background, but unfortunately for this session, we can't delve into it because we have so much to cover on this ginormous topic called AI, right? This has become the focal point of every conversation, no matter where you are in recent years. Mm-hmm. And yet, it's something that RELX has been focused on for well over a decade. We've been using extractive AI and more recently embraced generative AI and agentic AI and going on to other stuff, which I cannot name all, which you will later on. And I believe we now have over 13 commercially available generative AI products across the group. So I'd like to start by talking about extractive AI. Vijay, can you explain how does that work and why does it matter to everything that we've been doing since and the things that are ahead of us?
Yeah, it's a great context setting, Wise. We have a long history, as you know, at RELX with big data and AI and machine learning. And one of the things we like to say is that we were big data before big data was cool. And we say that without a trace of arrogance. But at the same time, we recognize that big data is not an end in and of itself, right? It's basically, the point is to get to small actionable data. And that's central to how we leverage technology at RELX, especially in the context of extractive AI, which is what we started off with. The point was to start with large volumes of data, very diverse data sets, very different formats from thousands of data sources, acquired at very high speeds, different kinds of cadences. And we take this data, it's unstructured, structured, all over the place, and then we extract the data points from the content. And we enrich the data to make it more analyzable. And as a function of doing that, we employ machine learning and natural language processing and AI techniques to provide our customers the insights they need to do their jobs. So just the process of linking, for example, linking all the data together. To give you an example, we have 7.2 billion SSNs. We don't have that many people in the United States. That's because we have a duplicity of records across multiple sources. So the point is to say these 387 records belong to Jill Luber, or these 512 records belong to YS. Only if you get that right, and we use machine learning even for that, only if you get that right are you in a position to create models and scoring models and attributes that are accurate and that are reflective of the kinds of insights you want to give our customers. So in the end, to answer your question about extractive AI, the idea is whether in all the different facets of solutions we offer our customers, whether it's a university benchmarking its performance, or a doctor trying to decide the best way to treat a patient, or in Jeff's case, a litigator trying to determine whether to take a case to court, or in my business, an insurance underwriter trying to assess the likelihood of a claim or determining the insurance premium. All that involves machine learning or some form of AI for us to bring the right kinds of solutions to our customers to help them, in my case, to help our customers reduce the risk of doing business with their customers.
So you talk about how there are all these data sets all over the world, right? And you are finding relationships between them. Is that a simple way of talking about how we have spent the past dozen years or so or more trying to perfect?
Yeah, the very first step is, later I'm sure we'll be talking about responsible AI, right? But the very first step, even before we get to that point, is to go very broad and deep in collecting accurate data sets. We're very particular about the provenance of the data that we get. We're very particular about making sure we collect the right kinds of data. For example, just because the data is convenient to get in 3 counties in a state, but not convenient, well, that's not good enough. You've got to get it from every single county to make sure the data is representative. Once we get the data, then of course what you say is absolutely true. We've got to make sure that the linkages between the data is as accurate. We use these terms called precision and recall, which Jill is very familiar with because she lived and breathed that world for the better part of it, for 15 years probably. But getting the data to be as complete as possible, linking it very completely and linking it very accurately is our bread and butter.
I see. We're going to get back to that because there's a concept later on that I want to talk about called trust. Let me jump right now, though, to Jeff and ask, how does all this stuff work in your domain? And Jill, after that, how does that work in your new domain? And I ask this because all of this is useless unless there is an application, right? So please, Jeff.
Sure, I'll jump in. So as Vijay mentioned, we've been working with AI technologies for many, many years. And a lot of that started out in using simple NLP, natural language processing, and then more detailed machine learning, deep learning algorithms. And as you mentioned, YS, we started out with extractive AI, which were, in our world, it's taking a case, identifying the attorneys, the law firms, the judge, the legal topics, and doing that in an automated way using these AI tools. As we went further along, the deep learning algorithms got even more sophisticated. And one thing a lot of people may not know is we were actually using GPT-3 before ChatGPT came out. So we had GPT-3 integrated into our product before the whole ChatGPT application came out. But when that came out, that was a game changer. And we had to step back because all of a sudden the generative capabilities, the ability to create a document or to summarize a document for the legal industry was a game changer. And what we discovered was prior to ChatGPT coming out, a lot of legal professionals were not what you would consider early adopters of technology. In fact, they were oftentimes laggards. But in this case, when they saw the capabilities of ChatGPT, all of that changed. And so we did a very quick pivot as an organization to really shift our resources towards this opportunity because it was a big one. And we quickly identified 4 use cases that made sense for our customers. We were working extremely closely with customers to get feedback on that. We reassigned our best data scientists from other teams to focus on this opportunity. And by October of 2023, we were ready to launch our first AI product, which was very, very well received. we made an early decision during that process to support multiple large language models. And so we early on had relationships with Anthropic, with AWS Bedrock, with Microsoft to host the OpenAI models. And since then, we've even expanded to other models, including working with OpenAI directly, the Mistral models. And so we're also hosting directly through Anthropic. So, we've been very adaptive. Use the best technology, the best large language model to support the use case at the best performance and the best price. And so we've had to set up an infrastructure that will allow us to quickly adopt new technologies. New models are coming out all the time, and to be able to test those in an automated way, but in the end have legal professionals, humans in the loop to make sure that the quality is appropriate for our customers before we would release any product. But it's having a significant impact in the legal market because of the huge opportunity it presents.
That speed element you were talking about is not something that LexisNexis Legal was reputed for in the past. So it's a nice thing to hear about. Let me jump to Jill, and then I'm going to come back to two myths that I've been carrying, and I've been torturing Vijay from time to time to challenge him. But Jill, go ahead and tell us about Elsevier case.
Sure. Yep. So Elsevier is a bit different from Risk and the LexisNexis Legal and Professional organizations in as much as our content is not readily available. It's not public information. It is research that has been peer reviewed, and a lot of our research is only available through Elsevier's products. But we have found, especially with generative AI, that's not enough. It's not enough to just have the content and have this very unique, curated set of content. We need to do more for our users. We need to do more for our researchers. We need to do more for our clinicians. And so we, right on the heels of LexisNexis, and in fact, using some of the lessons they've already learned and some of the technology that they were so gracious to burn the trails for us, we could take some of their learnings and create new offerings for our customers as well. So the first two off the bat were Clinical Key AI, which is in our healthcare division for clinicians. Now it has two purposes. One being you can look into some of the literature and the research in the medical world and make more sense of it faster, but there's also point of care. And that point of care solution is one that's really revolutionary because you can imagine the amount of literature that exists in the medical world and new methods, new medicines, new ways to diagnose, and for a clinician to really dive into all of that. They would have to do it offline. They'd have to do it after hours, after they've finished their patient load, and then go back to the patient with more information. This allows them to really dive into that at the point of care so they can have a more interactive conversation with their patient using the literature as the background. And in that solution, accuracy is so important. And Vijay talked about precision and recall. And so we've done a lot of work to make sure that our responses, and we talked a little bit about responsibility already, but there are a lot of different dimensions of responsible AI, and one that's super important in this space is to do no harm. And so we have a way to measure and we use doctors. We actually use clinicians to help us judge whether or not our answers are concise, are they relevant, do they do harm? And so it's something that we stay on top of and we're constantly monitoring in the clinical key space. We also released in our academic research space Science Direct AI. So Science Direct is a product that we have that will allow researchers to dive into research. And again, I talk about that content that we have that is peer reviewed. But oftentimes these research articles are very, very long. There's a lot of information in them, and to really get to what you're looking for can be cumbersome. And so adding an AI layer on top of this content really helps the researchers get to the point. If they really just want to know what kind of testing method did you use, right? There's a way that the AI can quickly help you find that information. And we use RAG, which is the method by which we don't just ask generative AI questions and let it answer the questions for us. We use the generative AI, one, to search our content. And we talked a little bit about linking at the beginning. That still applies in generative AI. Certainly with, if you think about taxonomies and some of the curation of content to say, in a specific domain, these two words have a connection, they have a meaning. We use that kind of linking in the generative AI search. So if someone's searching for a topic like secondhand smoke, we've also connected it to the medical term for secondhand smoke. So we make sure we're pulling back all the relevant articles. And so there's a linking bit there in that generative AI. We take the retrieved information, and then we ask generative AI to answer the question in a natural language context. And that really reduces the hallucinations as well and keeps that accuracy high. We always want to have a reference back to the source documentation. So anytime we answer a question, the user can dive deeper into the source of the literature to continue to dive on their own and read the source. So it's an important part of the solutions that we provide.
So this is all enormous amount of handling of data sets, right? And this is all taking enormous amount of hardware power. So the two myths that I've always been challenging about Gen AI since it came out was, one, I don't think it actually generates anything. It just regenerates things that are in the data sets, right? Whether that's from the linking or it's from precision or from the general recall. The second thing that I challenge is, can this be done without the hardware improvement that we have seen? And I'd like to ask Vijay, what is the optimism you have about how much more handling of these data sets quickly and cheaply occur because of the hardware side?
Oh, I think there's a ton of room to grow. In fact, YS, I think I shared a slide a few weeks ago which showed the pace, the rate at which GPUs, the capability and the power of GPUs has been escalating over the past 10 years in comparison to CPUs. And there's plenty of headroom just there, right? I can foresee GPUs not reaching a ceiling for, I don't know, 10, 15 years. And then after that, there's quantum computing on the horizon, which is going to further bring about a sea change in terms of hardware capabilities. So I don't expect that to stop for any time, I don't know, in my lifetime, I guess, in terms of the scale at which hardware can influence the speed at which we can process these data sets. And that again, going back to the first part of your question, yes, it's true. These things regenerate stuff in terms of a probabilistic kind of forecast of what the next word is or what the next likely scenario is or whatever it might be. But there's this debate that's been festering in academic circles right now in terms of, can it actually discover new things? And even the term discover is fraught with interpretation, right? But it can certainly yield insights as the capability of the hardware increases. It can certainly yield insights that are probably much, much harder for humans to achieve.
Yeah, so we can be very optimistic that we can get more and more sophisticated, more and more complex about the things that we're going to throw at the machine to compute for us. Is that okay?
Mm-hmm.
All right. So let me at this point jump to what is further ahead of this. Not more of the same stuff, but from Gen AI, Agentic AI, what do you expect? Any one of you can just give me some insights, please.
Sure. I'll jump in. So you mentioned agentic technologies, which is absolutely something that we're really focused on and is really the next frontier. That is one area. I would say the models themselves continue to improve and get better. And then the third area is these models are also now reasoning. So there's reasoning capabilities that have been used to help these models even come up with better answers. So I think the combination of those three areas, the opportunity to do more fine-tuning, what's called distillation, making the models smaller so they can operate faster and more fine-tuned to the specific use cases that you're working on, that's really kind of where we're focused within LexisNexis and spending our attention, because we believe the agentic technologies will help us as we look to improve applications that help specific workflows for our lawyers. So an M&A lawyer will work differently than a litigator, and how can we use these agents to optimize the workflow that will come out for to support what the lawyers are doing specific to them, optimized and personalized for the work that they do. And what's really unique about these agents is they can work in an autonomous way. They can make decisions on their own based on the context that the user is working in, the data that's driving the workflow, and then their actual workflow steps and where they are within their workflow. So I think that's going to change a lot of the way that these solutions are built and supported. And so I think those are the areas of focus that we're on, that we have within Lexis right now.
Yeah. I'll piggyback on that with the agents. So just to make it even more practical, I mean, some of the you said the workflows and the automation in our nursing education space, we're seeing a decrease in the number of nurses that are graduating and becoming part of the workforce in the United States. And that decrease is actually not lack of candidates wanting to go into programs. It's lack of educators. In many cases, the nursing educators are in fact nurses. Mm-hmm. So these are individuals who split their time between nursing and teaching the next generation. And so you can imagine that's hard to do. And how do we make it easier for these nurses to come teach the next generation? We can create agents that, given a unit of study within the program, can spin up their lesson plans, their quizzes, their homework, the tests, the assessment. You can then feed those assessments back into the agent to say, look, where did my students fall short? Let's go reiterate a point or two that they're missing, and really take the burden off of those. Again, they're nurses that are teaching the next generation. So taking away some of that nuance of being a teacher, and just to help them get it done without so much burden. So then hopefully we can have more nurses that will sign up to do this, and therefore we can graduate more. So, but it is going to be that kind of agent technology that really understands what you're trying to accomplish, and not just in the moment, but for a few weeks, or right, you can continue having this dialogue with the agent, like, how are your students doing? Or is there a concept that they need to really double down on? So
all of this is happening because we seem to focus so much on customer needs. You are CTOs. Yes, you do talk to customers, but there's probably a good layer between you and those who are facing the customer needs and hearing it. How is this working inside RELX?
Well, I'll start. I actually think it works very well. I don't talk to customers on a day-to-day basis in terms of understanding the requirements or anything like that. But when there is a market need, especially for a new product, I typically get involved in terms of understanding what that market need is, and then trying to figure out, well, what does it translate into in terms of a new product offering, or how we go about approaching that market need with something that we don't have before, right? So. And the other aspect is, because each of us has multiple business units within our respective divisions, one of the jobs that we have, one of the hats that we wear, is to look across the common needs of those markets and try to synthesize what it is we have to bring to bear. So that does require us getting fairly comfortable with what the customer's need is. And the nature of any organization, as you know, YS, is there's always more demand in terms of product needs than there are people to do it. So it's incumbent on us to try to figure out what are the things that we should be working on, so we can push back and say, maybe that's not what we should be working on right now. Maybe this is where we should be devoting our scarce resources.
One of the organizational things that really amazed me, and I'm so proud to be part of this, the entire group, is how much you work as a team. Obviously, you individually have different customer segments. You have different ways to try different technology and combine them. But you have created something that really shares a lot. One of you, please tell me about this CTO forum, and why does this work?
Sure. Jeff or Jill, you want to take a crack at it?
Sure, I'll start. So so the four of us get together about every 6 weeks, and we cover a variety of different topics that are pertinent to all of our organizations. And I would characterize it more as sharing best practices, leveraging the size and capabilities within RELX. So some of the topics that we cover are things like security, because we all have to deal with security, and we share best practices and any issues that we're individually focused on. Procurement. How do we leverage our scale as RELX to get the best price when we're working with large companies like Microsoft or AWS? And each one of us are the executive sponsor for one of those large vendors. So I am the executive sponsor for AWS, because we do a lot of AWS work within LexisNexis, and Vijay is the executive sponsor for Microsoft because they're hosting within Microsoft. And so we will take point in certain areas, but we'll always have a dialogue around issues or opportunities to do things better across RELX.
I mean, I remember, just one moment, Jill. I remember not long ago, Vijay, there was a lot of tension between these tech people in different divisions, and yet you created this forum in hopes that you would become amazing friends. You've become great allies to each other. I'm so jealous.
Yeah, I would say we do have a very strong working relationship. And part of it is, I think the secret sauce was to figure out where we should collaborate and where we shouldn't. Because we try to, boil the ocean and try to get into each other's shots and every little thing, it simply wouldn't work.
Yeah.
But we deliberately and very consciously chose the subset of things that we wanted to work on as a group that basically were common across the divisions, right? Because the reality is 95%, if not more, of our respective of our time is spent within our divisions. And with the few meetings that we have per year, what are the salient things that we really need to share across the group? And then even there, we can't do justice to it just among the 4 CTOs. So we set up these communities of best practices, we call them.
Yeah.
And that way we have a community of best practice for generative AI, one for end user computing or infrastructure. And we appoint people within our respective divisions to collaborate more broadly and deeply in these areas. So we don't have to get involved, because we can't get involved at a deeper level.
And this requires, obviously...
One other area, YS, that we collaborate a lot on is with talent.
I was going to just reach to that point and say, this cannot happen unless you have talents, and also talent that likes to work with each other. So help me understand for the audience, what do we do to attract, retain, train the talent, and have them be happy to work with each other and lever? What is it that we do so well?
I'll jump in because I've been 22 years and across 2 divisions now. So there was that moment of where I could take the next big step, and I chose to do it within RELX. And I think a lot of our mission and what we do across all of our divisions, you can find the mission and why it's important to do what we do. Within Elsevier, we're advancing human progress. In risk, there's so much work around helping combat fraud and helping, even there are, in Brazil, when there was no credit bureau at all, and everyone was paying ridiculous interest rates because there was no way to understand who's good credit and who's not. I mean, this is that kind of setting up that ability, and it's for the betterment of everyone, right? It's for the betterment of society. And even with the case law and understanding the law of the land and helping make sure that due process is right part of the society, and really setting standards for things like law and risk, and even in research. People get behind that. They understand why they come to work every day. They understand what they're contributing, right? And I think that's really important. And we talk about those goals and that vision often. You'll hear it very often in our town halls and what our leadership say, like, what we've accomplished. Yes, we're a business, and we're a very large business, and we're very successful, but our success is because we are doing the right things for our customers, and that they find what we produce and what we provide is worthy to continue to purchase and continue to have a relationship with us. And they're always hungry for, what is the next thing that the RELX company is going to bring for us, because they know that we have the customer in mind, and it's something that it's worth spending their budget on, right? And so it's helping them get their jobs done. And that's, I think, what our people can see that, and so they see that the contributions they're making, and so as a result, there's a nice respect amongst all the colleagues too, that we're all doing this together. And so I think that's a lot of what keeps people at RELX. We do have long tenure, certainly amongst the three of us in our divisions in tech. We all have very long tenure within a tech organization, which is not usual. And again, I think it's just people really enjoy who they work with and what they're doing and why.
Yeah, I think that as you mentioned, YS, it's all about AI. And so if you're a technologist, we've got some very interesting problems that we're solving for our customers, as well as the technology that we're using. So, we're using state-of-the-art technologies, we're hosting in the cloud, as a technologist, has never been a better time to be part of RELX.
I guess the only thing I would add to that, all great points. The other thing I would add to that, YS, is that we aren't dogmatic about where our talent comes from within technology. So we do strongly encourage lateral movement within our divisions, and we try to do it across divisions as well. And that's another thing that we share, as Jeff pointed out. But it's really important that if someone has an inclination for data, even if they don't necessarily have a computer science background, that's so passé these days to say, what was your degree? And so it's really important for us to look broadly at what a person's aptitude is and what they've accomplished and what they aspire to do, and move them across laterally even before they get that next promotion.
That is a perfect point from which I can launch the last segment of this thing, which is about looking forward for our people. Not just the 12,000 people within your organizations, but the other 25,000 people that are not in the tech organization. So can you each perhaps share some of your insights about what should they expect in their work as is affected by technology, and your advice to them of what they should be doing so that they remain very good at what they do, despite the tsunami of technology that is coming at us as a non-technologist. Please.
Yeah. I'll start just because I've recently been helping in Elsevier, we have a lot of editors of journals, a lot. And so back to your not very technical, but very good at what they do. But they are sitting in language all day. All day they're reading and commenting and making sure that the content they produce is of high quality. And the challenge that I give to that team is, if you find yourself doing something over and over and over, and it's a repetitive task, please raise that. Let us know. Let the technology team know. We may have a way. We've already talked about generative AI. We've talked about agents. Just internally, do we have a way to help our teams do what they need to do, spend their cognitive load in the right places, by getting rid of some of those repetitive tasks. And it feels more natural for technologists to have that conversation, and they think, if I'm doing something repetitive, I should automate it. But it can apply to anyone, really anyone in the company. If you're doing a repetitive task, there's probably a way to automate it, and we can take some of that, again, that cognitive load, and free up some time to do more things. And so that's what I encourage that team, just take note of what it is you do often.
Great point.
Yeah, and I think you want to experiment. We want to encourage experimentation. If you're in a sales organization, what kind of tools can help you do your job better? Marketing, customer support. As Jill mentioned, it can affect any of our roles and help us improve. But I would also suggest that you be adaptive, right? If you know your role's going to change, and because this will have an impact on all of our roles. And so how can we leverage this technology? How can we learn more about this technology to see how it can improve the way that we work, make us more efficient, make us more effective, make us allow us to contribute even more to the company? And so, really, have that kind of learning approach where, hey, I'm just going to try some of this stuff out and see what it's capable of doing.
Yeah, great points. The one thing I will add is, I think we've all heard the cliche that it's not AI that's going to take your job. It's going to be somebody else that knows how to use AI that's going to take your job.
This is why Vijay is my tutor.
To some extent, that's a little glib, because there are going to be jobs that, in the fullness of time will be taken over by AI. It's just one of those things that, as it becomes more advanced, you can see that happening. But in the short term, back to Jeff's point about being adaptive and being a learning organization and a learning individual, it's really incumbent in every one of us, whether you're a technologist or not, to learn what the capabilities of AI are. And it's not that easy, actually, because, for example, I'm using ChatGPT Enterprise right now. I often find myself fighting it instead of, because I think I know better, or I'm getting impatient, or whatever it might be. So it starts with leadership, actually, all of us encouraging ourselves and then encouraging our teams to get conversant with these tools and be that person who uses AI to make ourselves more productive and augment our own capabilities.
If I can ask each of you as a final question, what are the things that you would each like to see us do more, better, cheaper, faster? Can you just share with our employees and perhaps even our business partners that may be listening to this on podcast, what would they be?
I'll go ahead and start. Experiment, try things out. It's okay to fail. It's okay to make mistakes, but then learn from those mistakes and then challenge yourself to say, let's try it again. Let's pivot and try a different approach. Right. And so I think it's a great opportunity to leverage new technologies as they're coming out and, experiment and try new things and not everything's going to work. That's okay. We've learned something from it. We can adopt and adapt and we'll use those learnings to get better and continue to improve.
I would take everything Jeff said, but with the lens of your own career and your own personal development, and not for our employees not to have boxed themselves into a discipline or this is what I do today. I'm seeing so much overlap between data science, data engineering, even into even the DevOps space. There's just these worlds are starting to be fuzzy, and it's okay to jump from one discipline to another, or even outside of technology into technology, or from technology into product. I think that exactly what Jeff's saying. Let's take some chances. Let's learn, and I'd love to see more of our employees pursue those sideways moves, if you will.
What I would add to that, and I agree with those statements, is that just to maybe provide a contrarian view, the danger of the democratization of these tools is that, you hear terms like vibe coding. It's a term that I hate. But the notion that someone who can use a tool and write enough code to be dangerous can cause some people to think that they can write quality code that can make its way into production, right? And that's something for us to watch out for, because what a software developer does, a good software developer, is not just write code. They have to worry about version control. They have to worry about security. They have to worry about regulatory compliance. And we've always talked about correlation is not the same as causation. So it's one of those things where we can't let the democratization of these tools lead to the symptom of a little knowledge is a dangerous thing, right? So we have to watch out for, better, cheaper, faster is a wonderful thing until it really gets us in a world of hurt, and then it's not so fast or cheap anymore.
Right. These are very wise things to share for our audience. Obviously, you've made it very clear that the technology is moving very quickly, and that we have to adopt them for the sake of our customers, who have to continue to trust us that what we provide is something definitely they can work with and not have to worry about. And yet this then takes change type of talent and an awful lot of sharing across the talent to make it actually work and at a speed that we can tolerate. So I think we are now at a point where we have to do more experimentation, more open-mindedness to look at different ways to solve our problems for our customers, and hope that when we do, that we share those experiences with others, so that we don't have to have it done 37,000 times. I want to thank you all for sharing those wisdom with us today. And as always, Vijay, you're my tutor, and I will always bother you for technology questions that I can't answer myself. And Jill, keep solving those problems for us in the space of medicine and research, because I think that area, it just has so much to gain from what Jeff called the repetitiveness, right? So, and Jeff, please get out there and keep the pace going, because we love what LNLP has been doing the last 2 years in exploring partnerships and new way of doing things so quickly. Once again, thank you so much for spending the time with us today. And I think that you guys will get a lot of follow-up questions.
Great.
My pleasure.
Thanks,
for
YS.
Happy to.
Thank you.
Thank you.